Hello, and welcome back to the Book Club Podcast. I'm your host, Matt from Ohio, and today I'm joined by the author of Marmalade Parade. Matthew Joudrey is an award-winning Canadian writer, book publisher, and designer, and his newest novel, Marmalade Parade, is the story of a man without any memories who arrives at a location in the mountains somewhere, only to find an older man who is also experiencing some type of mental decline. And simultaneously, sometimes together, sometimes separately, the two have to figure out why they're there, why they've been brought together, and what links them. I was wildly surprised by this book, and I feel very honored to have the author here. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. We're going to do a lot of hey, Matts and yeah, Matts. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Matt.
Yeah, I cackled a little bit when you said we should start a Matt and Matt in the morning talk show.
We absolutely should. There's no reason. Does Ohio have one? They might need us.
Not Matt and Matt.
That's great.
You're not only an author, you're a designer, you're a book publisher. How did you get into the industry? Why did you get into the book industry in so many facets? What's the story?
Yeah. Well, what can I say? I probably made a wrong turn somewhere. You know, I thought that I was probably going to be doing something different with my life, but I started out in post-secondary doing graphic design, and that's what I took in post-secondary, and then I worked for a couple firms and did some freelance, and then I started writing and drawing comic books, and I started going to the comic book conventions, and I would meet, um, lots of great artists and authors there, who struggled to get their books published. And I remember thinking to myself, their work is fantastic. It's really great. I probably would publish this myself. And then I think it sort of slowly evolved from there.
So you got into the book industry via publishing first or graphic design? Like like and I mean like the book industry proper, straight away.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that I got into the book industry through publishing my comics. And
Okay,
that's where things
self-publishing.
got started. And then, oddly enough, I worked for years as well in finance. So completely different world than graphic design. So entering into publishing through that, and then starting to do the publishing house design work again was sort of a full circle thing.
And what was the pivot into, actually this might sound weird, the pivot into fiction? I mean, comic books are a type of fiction, I suppose, but I mean I guess proper novel fiction. What was the pivot there?
Yeah, I think the pivot there is that as an artist, I was my art was very detailed, and it was laborious, and it took me a long time to finish pages. I think at my best speed, I got down to where I was doing about a page of art, or I should say, I could do a page of art a day. And I think in today's industry, you have to be able to do multiple pages a day, and that has to be every day. So to say that I'm going to do a page of art a day doesn't mean I was doing 7 pages a week, right? Like there were all kinds of other um, there were other things, other factors that were going on in life that would interrupt that. So I think from there, I just started writing more and more, and, doing more just, text writing and that sort of thing, prose. Um, and then started submitting around to different publishing houses and that sort of stuff.
Right on, right on. Where exactly does your heart lie?
Well, probably just slightly off center to the right, probably, in my chest. But uh, But if you mean by like where does it lie with in regards to comic books or fiction, is
Huh?
that what you? Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that's a funny question in that when we started the publishing house, mm, our publishing house is called At Bay Press. When we started At Bay Press, we really started out doing just fiction, like prose fiction, and mostly just literary fiction. Fast forward, almost 20 years later, and I love that we publish graphic novels now. And I would say that graphic novels make up about 25% of our, you know, annual publishing catalog. So it's rapidly growing for us. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely taken on a lot more of our publishing mandate. And so for there, I'd probably say that my I always have a soft spot for the visual storytelling, and it's what I grew up with, and so yeah.
Sounds like you're kind of creating your own perfect cocktail to live with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really nice way of putting it for sure. Yeah, creating my own
Living the
creative.
dream.
Yeah, living the dream, creative
Yeah.
cultural cocktail for sure.
Most people say that they're living the dream, and that's like a euphemism for life is awful. But for you,
Well,
um,
Matt, in some cases, the publishing industry can be pretty difficult.
I've heard.
I imagine it's like running any business. There are ups and downs, but the publishing industry, and I mean, we're in two different countries. You're in the United States. I'm in Canada. I mean, Canada has. It's funny. We always used to be fairly aligned, I think culturally to some degree. But I think our cultural differences are quite broad now, and
Mhm.
certainly the two countries have changed dramatically since I was a kid, and I think so has our sort of cross border relationship as well. And so I think that these
Yeah.
things impact the direction that maybe these sort of cultural nuances and how people consume them, within the arts. I think they've evolved and changed.
Yeah. The change you're referencing has certainly, and I don't want to derail us, but it has certainly escalated.
Yeah, that's a
It has
safe
certainly
bet.
escalated in recent times, and it's a major freaking bummer.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think? I think that books, the arts in general, are one of the major reasons why we get out of bed in the morning. It's it provides us with our entertainment, our enjoyment, but it also creates more abstract and critical thinking, and allows us to broaden our perspectives and diversify the person that we are. And so uh, the more we promote and spend time on the arts, the better off we'll all be as people.
I couldn't have said it better myself, my friend. Marmalade Parade.
Mhm.
It's the fourth work, like the fourth prose work that you've published. Is that accurate? Do I have my facts right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah, I had to do the
Okay.
math in my head too. I'm, like, quickly going through the titles to go, "Is Matt right?" "Yes, Matt. Right about Matt."
So, can you give me a lowdown on how you feel that Marmalade Parade is a little bit different than what you've done in the past of what your other authoring are?
Yeah,
Has it
sure.
yeah?
So,
Awesome.
I think that, the first book I ever did was, for a younger readership, like more teen, reading, and then, it was pretty standard prose, but as I moved into book 2, book 3, especially book 3, that I did, my 3rd book, Phononymous, my I think I found, a more definitive personal style in the way that I was writing, which was, a little bit more experimental, a little bit. There's definitely some abstract moments in the prose, and I like this because I think that well, one, it's very exciting for me to have found a personal sort of like structural voice, and then two, um, I'm hoping that readers also find it exciting and maybe even a little challenging to experience because it's not as um, traditional and fluid as maybe a standard novel is. And so with Marmalade Parade, I think I really tapped into that. I think I just went for the gusto and sort of said, I'm going to try to allow myself to have that experience of, I think this is my voice. I think this is the style that feels most natural to me, and I think I'm I think I'm very comfortable with it. So I may as well, kind of let loose. And I think that's what happened with Marmalade Parade.
Well, I think you achieved something. Here, let me tell you this. So I read the book twice, actually. Um, and I couldn't help but think, am I reading a modern day Franz Kafka?
Yeah, right.
And I'm not trying to put you on some type of pedestal, but I was just like, it's for real. I couldn't help but be reminded of The Castle specifically in many
That's a great
regards.
book. Yeah.
Um, so that made me wonder, am I on any sort of right track? Like, who would you consider your influences to be? Are you trying to mimic anybody, or are you just trying to be Matt Joudrey?
Yeah. I think I think there's a double-edged sword answer to that in that I'm trying very hard to be Matt Joudrey. And trust me, it's a day-to-day labor for sure, trying to be oneself. And find out who you are, because I think it's not to sound too cliche, but I think it is a continuous life um journey in that regard. But I also think it's interesting that you found that there was some Kafka notes to the some undertones to the book. I don't think that Franz Kafka was at all an influence on the work, but I mean, you refer to the castle, or um, what a great what a great book. The Trial is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, two cops show up at a man's house and charge him over his breakfast with a crime, but they won't tell him what he's charged with, and they let him finish his eggs, and he uh, he takes off with them, and then has to, like the absurdity of these stories. I think they can't help but leave an imprint on you, and then you carry that forward whether you do it consciously or subconsciously. And in this case, maybe there was some subconscious influence there and I think there always is. I think there's always your life experiences are always going to subconsciously influence how you know put something like this out on paper. And I think that's one of the things that maybe is easier to spot in music, because musicians will often say that, like, oh, I was listening to this album, and it took me down this path which led me to begin to start to write some notes and music for my new album. And so I think maybe it's just a little bit of a quicker process there, instead of, I don't know for sure, I'm not a musician. I'm trying to learn the harmonica, and it's ruining my wife and my dog's life, so.
God, you've reverted to middle school.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Like, I thought I was choosing the easiest instrument in the world to learn, and it turns out I'm even horrible at that, so, uh, uh
Are you when writing, would you consider yourself to be a plotter? Oh, what are these three terms? Plotter, pantser, or plantser? Like, do you plot the book out? Do you just go by the seat of your pants, or is there some kind of hybrid when
It's a
you're writing?
hybrid for sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know any. Personally, I don't know any authors like myself. I know they exist. I just don't know any authors that aren't um, allowing the book to unfold a little bit to them as they go through it. Like it takes them on a in a direction that they weren't expecting. I mean, I definitely know my plot. I know my plot. I know my characters. I know what I want to do with them. I know why they're there. I know what my goals are. You know, and I know why I want to write the story, what the message is, my reasons behind it. Um, but as you get going, and I think this is just part of the, at least for me, part of the creative process. I can't speak to other people, but as I'm typing away, um, there are for sure moments where that exercise of doing that um, opens up doors that you didn't expect, and you then decide, am I going to go through that door, or am I going to try to stay on the path that I was on? And I can honestly tell you, there are many times where I go through the door that, where is this going to lead now? So yeah, there is a level of flying by the seat of your pants for sure when you go through that door because you are deviating from the flight path, so to speak.
I can't help but be reminded of the hole in the drywall and discovering the cellar. So that's what I
Yeah,
started picturing as soon as you were talking about going through a door and not knowing where it's going. Uh,
yeah, that's a really good scene to bring up actually because thinking back to it, I remember that again, just with regards to plot, I remember that I wanted to do this very intense but ambiguous reveal in that regard. But I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and I love the idea of um, this sort of like guilty peeping tom um, kind of aspect, right? And I wanted the reader to feel that, right? Like I wanted the reader to because I mean, spying on a neighbor or something like that, it gives you this wild sense of excitement. You know it's wrong. You know you're doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing, but you can't help yourself. It's like rubbernecking during an accident. You don't want to see the carnage, but for whatever reason, you just feel like I've got to look because I never get to see this sort of thing. And I think that's what at least that was my hope was when the reader, is reading this, they're getting down on their hands and knees too to look through the hole
yeah,
and see what's
little taboo, little
yeah.
voyeuristic. Yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, all of it. And, the kind of like, tiny bits of shame that come with it,
a little
right?
bit. Yeah, he even pulls back and he's like, "Ooh, I shouldn't be looking right now," but he's already
Yeah,
seen enough. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, you've
um,
already done the damage.
One thing I was very curious to pick your brain about specifically,
Mhm.
big picture before I dive into more detail, is just how the story is told, the architecture of this book. Um, it's you've got three parts, and when people hear three parts, three acts, they almost think of it like a play or something. But this is not a play per se because the acts
No,
are
it doesn't have
completely
that
different
structure at
modes
all.
of telling story.
Yeah.
Like part one is like the main story. It's like what
Yeah.
you pick up the
There
book to
is.
read. It's the first
Yeah,
person narrative. Part
that's right.
three is similar, but it's a conversation between unnamed characters that we don't know, and it's like resolution and fallout. But part two is like it is a story, but it is told through transcripts and redacted documentation rather than a point of view.
That's
And
right.
I want to know why this choice? Each one of those is so singular and so specific. What went through your head in this architecture process? Because it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I wanted was I wanted people to experience, as you put it, the bulk of the novel is in that first part. And the more traditional um, novelistic experience is in that part. But where things I think become, and again, the prose is still quite unique and even to some degree experimental in the first part. But I think the pace um, and the plot allow for the reader to settle in. The second part, of course, is the auction. And what I wanted was I wanted to interrupt part one and part three with this auction to give the reader the experience of watching one person's life be sold off. And whether or not there is any way, and the experience um, that I wanted the reader to have was whether they could, in any way experience and understand who the person is through the material possessions that they owned. Can we know somebody, like if we walk into somebody's house and it's an estate sale and nothing's been touched yet, you're the first through the door. Can you ever understand who this person is by walking through this house and seeing all of their belongings? They're not there, but the imprint that they've left on the world, their world, meaning that little house, that tiny piece of real estate, is all that's left of them. And is there an essence of them, or is it just, belongings that will end up in somebody else's hands as it gets scattered across different purchases and acquisitions? And as a collector, I think about that because I'm a collector. I collect, books and music and art, um, and insects and like, you know what I mean? Like I have my reasons, and I do this for my own personal joy and eccentricities and obsessions. But um, I wonder, if when I disappear, when I'm gone, I'm in the ground or in the air or I become soil or whatever the case may be, um, what what would somebody like think of my possessions in, you know, I guess in relation to who I am? Are you getting more out of this by meeting me as a stranger this one time than somebody would if they saw all my possessions, or what's the deal? So I think that second part really lays down some interesting groundwork about who we are and how, because a lot of people I think have this idea that it's really important to have a legacy. And one of the things that I've realized is that I don't think there's any real such, like, there's no such thing as legacy. I think that it's just what's left behind of yours, and will people appreciate it or sell it off? And so that's what the auction is. It asks that tough question. And then, of course, the third part is it ties all of these two complex, earlier parts together and gives you an opportunity to have potentially a few really difficult questions answered, or more being open.
Both, I found at least.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I'm very curious about, like, I would love to be a part of, I'm sure lots of authors say this, but, and, maybe it's ego, maybe it's not, but I'd love to be a part of a book club to hear what people think about, and what they feel the ending was, or, what their guesses are at, the questions that are asked. So,
it's very interesting because I think part of the reason I love I went when I was in college 20 years ago, I was a philosophy major. Um, so like part of the reason I love that and I love Kafka and Chuck Klosterman and Marmalade Parade is I don't know if there is an answer. It's almost very platonic
Hmm.
insofar as Plato wrote a bunch of books, right? But there are no answers in his books. They were teaching materials for his students where a bunch of different perspectives were set forth and it allowed his students just to think and talk. Um, like, for example, with the auction, are we supposed to learn? And I don't want to go into details here because I don't want any spoilers or anything, but
Right.
like the auction, are we supposed to be learning about the benefactor because the benefactor is the one selling off these possessions that the benefactor owned? Or are we supposed to be learning about the artist who
Hmm.
was the source of these possessions before the benefactor owned them? Right?
Yeah, I think you've asked the $100 question there. And I think that if I was to reveal anything here, I think that you've really touched on what I was trying to do.
Mm,
The experience that I was trying to give. I'm not going to say either or because I don't want
mhm.
to offer any influence to anybody, but you've definitely put the thumb on what it was that was being attempted there, and hopefully
Good, good.
it succeeds. But again, it's a challenging part in that there isn't any real character driven plot there, and that's why. I mean, I mean, it's not a reveal here. There's no spoiler, but there is a discussion about it being incomplete. The catalog, the auction catalog is incomplete. So they only have a fragment of the catalog. Um, what's missing,
Yeah. And why?
right? Another big mission. Exactly. Why? What's missing, and why? And I think that those open doors allow the reader to really be themselves and fantasize about what could be, or what was, or what's missing.
um, and I don't know. I love the storytelling because it almost feels like it's being given to us through a bureaucratic, red taped government type of lens. And we all know that government is the most complete and efficient body out there. So like it almost reads as though like there's an underlying secondary commentary on the man and the system to a degree without actually coming out and saying any of that. And I thought that was really, really interesting to try to tease apart. Um,
Yeah.
but like beyond the high level stuff, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, and maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here. Maybe I'm reading way too much into things, but I don't think so. After talking to you for 25 minutes, I do not think that I am misreading this anymore. This book is like chock full of symbolism that I tried to tease apart. I have notes just like how does this connect? Like, but like for example, the chicken,
Yeah,
the
yeah, right.
ladybugs,
Yep,
the on again off again earthquakes, right? And it made me okay, so it made me think that there's so much here, but on the next level it made me think of like one of the main tenets of rhetoric, which is the idea that the message people actually receive is what matters, not necessarily what the author intended.
absolutely.
um so I'm wondering if a reader misses some of that symbology or misjudges it or something along that line, do you feel like the meaning of the book changes? Like, should we really be looking at the symbolism or does it still work on some level? What are you
Right.
hoping for?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, for me, I write and then the readers read. And so whatever they take from it is my intention. I I I don't like to give a laundry list of how Matt Moore, like what Matt Moore looks like. He's got his ball cap on backwards. He's got a big thick mustache. Like I don't want to. I like to try to work it into the story, right? So, you know, if the if the protagonist has a tick and, kind of loves to, twirl his mustache. Well, now I know that Matt has a mustache. I didn't have to say he does. I'm just saying he's faced with anxiety in this moment and his reaction is to do that, right? So I like to give those characteristics about looks or the sound of the antagonist or the protagonist or the character. I like to offer that up through points of the story. And so I think when you do that, the the reader then begins to develop that character way more because they're only getting bits and pieces at a time through the plot or story. They're not getting that like sudden laundry list. He had green eyes and a big nose and long chin and masculine face, but he was older, and so there were lines. Like I don't like to go through that just to get it out of the way. I like to you know say that he had trouble reading the newsprint, so he squinted, and the crow's feet appeared at his eyes, and boom, we now know that he has, a little bit of an older, aspect to his face, like and then the reader develops that themselves. Same as sound, like and then they take that away. So I think for me, I want the reader to really, have their own, um, somewhat creative and fantasy experience through the work, and, there is no, perfect end game here.
Discovered that, and people I've come across, there seem to be a very large number of readers who are extremely surface level readers.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. More so than people who are willing to take on challenging text, for sure. Yeah.
Does does that ever worry you with a book like Marmalade Parade?
Um the entire reading industry worries the shit out of me. Am I allowed to curse on this show? I mean, I've never seen a cultural, artistic, creative, imaginative crisis like we have now, where people are. I mean, one of the things that I remember hearing was people who are in recovery over addiction. When they're recovering, they start smoking, and they may have smoked beforehand, and it's to give them something so that they can, have something to do with their hands and that sort of thing, and it allows them a little bit of a continued kind of experience while they're trying to recover. And it's always been said that nicotine is the most addictive, property on the planet. Uh, I don't agree. I think that it's our technology. It's our cell phones. It's the greatest addiction, and, I just saw that in, in your country, the United States, that, Meta has just, been nailed with a,
It was the
uh
Arizona lawsuit for, targeting
exactly,
and endangering minors, I
right.
believe it was, which they
Yeah,
need to
yeah, and
expand that
so
outside of minors.
well, when you think about it, if you have, close to $1 trillion available to you, which is an unfathomable amount of money available to you. I mean, you could buy a number of countries if you wanted to with that kind of money. If you have that kind of money, of course, you're able to do things that are, you know, so powerful, so like that you can create, um, let's call it a drug, which is a cell phone, and developing minds would be so vulnerable to this. So I'm, you know, I'm really trailing off here, but the answer to that question is that um, I think that the world needs more difficult, more challenging books and artwork And we have to keep pushing forward so that this stuff gets in front of the general public so that we do have an informed society instead of the disastrous creations that these other individuals, these giant tech companies have um, set upon the world. And I'm not trying to sound doomsday; it's just the facts, right? Like doom scrolling is something that people can sit and do mindlessly for hours, right? And they're just sitting there just scrolling, getting nothing from it. So no wonder it creates mental health issues and anxiety because there's no wholesome substance there. There's nothing of value. And, sitting down and offering yourself a private moment to read is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself, for your for your for your everyday enjoyment of life. Just like going for a walk, you know, um, bird watching, I don't know, learning a new instrument or,
The
uh,
harmonica, yeah.
discovering, uh discovering a new food that you've never tried before. I mean, these are all things that, like, enlighten and tantalize and, change who you are.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me yesterday if I would ever consider being an influencer, and I had to have them define what that is, and because I do this, I do this, and sometimes I think people think this is influencing, and I'm like, no, 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 this is long form content. This is a deep
Mhm,
discussion. This is not
mhm.
a 5 second. I don't know how anybody can as a novel into a single sentence. And I think it's the death of literature, it's the death of attention span, it's the death of thoughts. um
Well, and we
so
do
like
it all
I'm
the
right there
time
with
now.
you.
We do it all the time now. Like, if you think when, we'll call it the major publishing houses were really, like, catching their stride in the 50s and 60s. When they were putting out books, they didn't put blurbs on the cover. There was no, like, greatest book I ever read, Stephen King, right? Like, it wasn't on the cover like that. They just put out a really well edited, really well constructed, well written book, and it had cover art. And that was it, right? And sometimes they would advertise the author's next book on the back cover or one of their other authors' books on the back cover, and that was the extent. Now, in order for us to help sell the book, we have to have blurbs all over it, and that's not even enough.
Like,
Exactly. That's
you got
not
to get on
even
TikTok.
enough.
Yeah.
Well, no, but then the book may get nominated for an award, so we gotta put a sticker on it, and now, hopefully, you may have developed an audience, and I think it does directly relate to our obsession as, you know, a, a collective race of people over celebrity. You know, we, 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 we only want to read or be involved with things where, as you put it, are involved with, major influential people. And it used to be that writers who sat in a dark room and never really ever came out of that dark room, the only thing that came out of it was the book.
It's the book.
That's what mattered. But now the writer matters, and I don't want to matter. I want my writing to matter. I don't want
Amen.
it.
Amen.
I don't want anybody on my front lawn. Trying to get my picture or something like that. I just want them to read the book, and if they love it, great. If they want to spread the word to, all the Matts in the world, I hope they do.
I'm gonna do my best to segue here. Watch this.
Okay.
uh, okay, we need more books in our life, we need more wholesome content in our life, because these are the things that create memories. Marmalade Parade is a book that is very concerned with the idea of memory. Okay, segue. Let's go. Um,
I like it. I like it.
one idea that kept circling in my mind while I was reading is just the nature of a memory.
Mm.
Before we even get down into the specific things that Marmalade Parade deals with, just what is the nature of a memory, right? The novel seems to play a little bit between our two main characters in part one with the difference between having a memory and knowing you have that memory. So let me ask you this. Can someone truly have a memory if they're not aware of it?
Yeah, I think this is the type of question that I think a lot of people um, in in pediatric science maybe have been trying to figure out, which is, at what point does a, a a newborn child, as they begin to mature, at what point do they hold memories? Does their you know does their memory become reliable enough or strong enough to be able to hold that first memory and continue to do so going forward? And I think that's a very difficult question. It's like looking at your dog's face and going, "Are you thinking anything right now, or are you is it just completely empty in there? What's going on?" And you can't know unless you're in there. And I'm fascinated by these philosophical journeys of, like, what is, what isn't. And I don't have those answers. I just try to ask, I hope, good questions. And then maybe a reader out there, and I put this responsibility on them. Maybe they are able to develop a very good answer, you know, and be able to share that and take that forward into the work that they do. And it might offer a little bit of direction. I mean, that's how I try to do things as well. As I read other people's work so that I get something from it, and that hopefully, the synapses fire, and I get a little, a little something from it, a nugget, a kernel of something that I can use and develop, and that resonates with me and makes me think, outside of my normal scope. And yeah, I mean, memory. One of the questions the antagonist asks the protagonist in the book is, um, you talked about having this toy truck as a child, and you said it was red. You sure it was red?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
How
it's
do you know it was
decades ago.
red? Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah, I
decades
remember that.
ago. And, like, are you sure it wasn't yellow or orange or green, right? Like, how do you know for sure? How do you even know it was a truck? Well, it could have been a car. Do you have that toy in your possession? Can we take a look? And no, of course, it's just memory.
One of my notes that I wrote down was this is a very Rene Descartes type moment. I put that on my notes. I was like, holy crap. Um, and I think I really like this question because it is very much a chicken and the egg, or if a
Good use of
tree falls
chicken.
in the if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around, does it make a sound? That kind of a question. Like, is there an
Yep.
answer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but like it does bring up the idea of what is fact, right? And I was thinking, so a fact is objectively true. That's the definition of a fact, right? But if nobody believes it to be true, then it serves no purpose. And for all intents and purposes, it's not true. Similarly, you could have a memory and that memory could be objectively false. It didn't happen, just like the truck. Who knows what the color is? But it could feel undeniably real and true to the point where the memory is our truth. Um, and so, like in this way, truth and memory and belief and memory are sort of like opposite things. One belongs to reality as it is, and the other one belongs to reality as we perceive it. And that perception is something that I'm going to call him the hound, really
Yeah.
seems to skirt with, as he's constantly bemoaning living in a state of like anguished nostalgia, which is definitely like memories tainted by belief of some kind. So what kind of message were you attempting to throw out there, or what kind of question were you attempting to ask in like where you're examining how nostalgia goes from helpful to hurtful?
Mm. Yeah. Well, nostalgia for me, and again, I see it in lots of different people, but it's certainly a very powerful, um, it might be even more powerful. It might be the most powerful, memory inducing element, even more so than love. Um, and the reason is because nostalgia is truly steeped in who we are and what has significantly impacted our lives. You said fact earlier. To me, a fact is something that has irrefutable concrete proof. We can measure it by that. Whereas a memory, in almost all cases, unless we have the photograph to prove it or the truck in our hand, um, is truly just that, a memory. We just remember to the best of our cognitive abilities what it is, and it is influenced greatly by nostalgia. That truck I received on Christmas Day as the gift from my dearly departed folks. There's just so much emotion and memory, loss and grief and love all wrapped up in this one thing. How can it not be? Um, how can it not be influenced by that in a way that skews what the memory is? So the question that I asked with the hound, and that he constantly, as you said, bemoans about, is he feels that he can no longer rely on his greatest cognitive ability, which is his memory. It's unreliable to him. He feels that is there are holes. There are there are tethered and frayed ends. There are fractures and things are falling apart. And when that's happening, um, becomes very difficult for a person, I think. And I don't know. I have never had like dementia or Alzheimer's, but those two afflictions, I think, played a very big um, point like a very big factor in how I wrote this book.
So we were just discussing the concept of our own perception on
Mm,
memories and our
yeah.
ability to believe the memories. Let's flip that for a second and talk about how our memory shoves itself onto our perception of the current world. And I'm going to be really curious to know if I caught this or if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here. But like, especially in like the first third of the novel, there's like a lot of the verbs that you use and the way you describe things in this book are super interesting. A couple that I wrote down very specifically is like everything is gray.
Mm,
Whiskey is described as spilling into a cup instead of being poured into a cup. And like the pool is not full of water, it's pregnant with water. Like the word choices are so interesting. And I don't know if that is just we're in a different world or maybe a different future time where things have changed, or if this is a concept where our characters can't necessarily remember the correct words and their memories are skewed and therefore they don't know how to describe the world around them. So like, am I going a step like, is that what are you making a commentary here on how our memories are associated to perception, like almost like an objective versus subjective reality type of thing, or am I extrapolating too far?
No, you're not extrapolating too far. That was absolutely the intention, was that everything was meant to unsettle the reader. I mean, most of the book takes place in that one room, and that's not um, that's not something that I've created. I mean, that's been used probably most famously by Alfred Hitchcock in Dial M for Murder. Setting up in one apartment room and turning that into the entire stage. And and for me, when I'm writing these things, I realize that they're confined to this spot, and that while I didn't want it to feel like a prison, I did want it to feel like they were trapped, confined. And I think part of that is using um, tricky little things, clever little things like what you pointed out, which is nothing seems normal. Nothing seems how you would expect it to be. You know, the pool is full of water, it's pregnant with water. And it just strikes the reader as this very sort of vivid kind of simile, but also that it unsettles because it doesn't sound like how you would normally talk. And I mean, at the end of the day, too, the author is supposed to come up with exciting prose that hopefully scintillates to some degree, so that the reader has a very exciting, stimulating, enjoyable experience with the book, while not trying to be too verbose.
No, I think
Where
you
you
definitely achieved that because, like, they're trapped in this house, but I'll go on record and say that there's a lot of movement within the house, right?
Mhm.
You have, like, the hound's bedroom that is sometimes an office, that is sometimes another thing, and then you have, our main character's bedroom, but then you have, like, the kitchen and, they find the cellar and there's the pool outside, but they never go outside. Like, you've created this world even though they really only move about 20 steps in any direction, and that's pretty remarkable, if I might say, for the
Yeah.
reader not to get bored.
Well, and that's my hope, and that's why, there's this constant discussion about what's beyond the glass of the windows. They're looking out at the world and seeing, a world that continues to move forward, where, people collect the tea leaves in the mountains, and the rain still falls, and you're watching the earth reclaim old buildings. And um, but they're only looking through, that panoramic window to see it. And there is this very sort of like stilted science fiction trope that's being used there, that you're able to create yet again another reader experience. But there's this point in the book where I really hope that people are able to contemplate, which is that uh, the feeling of being confined and trapped, that claustrophobia of, because that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be I'm in a prison cell. It's meant to be that I'm in something that just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller for me, and eventually, of course, erodes away. Um, but you hear about the hound being able to leave the house at some point. Can we rely on that? Did he leave? Did he not leave? But the protagonist can't seem to leave, or doesn't want to leave. And it opens up a whole new realm of questions, in that why? Why can one leave and the other can't? Mm, did he even leave?
It's sort of inexplicable, and I think it's a good comment on just, like, so many people were born in a city and we move 5 miles away at most.
Mhm.
You know, you can leave, but you don't. But you never really think about why. It's it's so true to life. Okay, I have two more points that I want to ask you about, but I recognize that these topics are going to be they're going to skirt spoilers pretty good. So I'm going to do my
Okay, so I'll
best
try
to
to be
be
very careful too.
I'm going to do my best to be vague, and I'll leave it up to you how much you want to comment.
Okay.
Okay. This book really messes with the idea of
Hmm.
and how memory intersects with time. Um, so instead of trying to give an example from the book, let's try to imagine time as an hourglass, if you will. The two large ends, right? One is the past, one is the future. Um, and then the little connective funnel in the middle is the present. Now, objectively, the past and the future, they don't exist. The future hasn't happened yet. The past already happened and therefore doesn't exist now outside of our memory. And what that means is that the present, the tiny, tiny little funnel in the middle of these two huge orbs, is our entire world. And yet, the past and the present seem to collide a lot in this book. And I started wondering whether the present even exists, given that there's a small lag between what we see and then our brains, you know, understanding it and processing it, which means that we're all technically living in a microscopic version of the past in some way. Anyways, so, all right, going back to your book, enough of my pontification. What kind of commentary were you trying to explore? And again, vague questions about the intersection of time in regards to memory and how we handle it and treat it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's essential. It's absolutely essential, because, memories are tied to time and, I mean, if we could timestamp a memory like we do on computer files, we would be able to catalog things so much better. I mean, the brain is an amazing thing in that this fantastic, uh, powerful natural computing devices is in our heads, but yet so much of it can be unreliable. Arguments that we have, we say things to people like, you said that to me, and the other person says, I never said anything like that. And who's right? But we often, stake our life on these things, when in fact, they're so unreliable. Time is so essential to, being able um, to put value on a memory. Did it happen in 1982 or did it happen in 1984? We can't say for sure. We can only guess for the most part, and then we use other memories to try to figure it out. Okay, was it my birthday? Did that happen? And that helps us, like, piece together the things. It's like one of the toughest things I think for a lot of people as they get older are nouns. Recalling, somebody's name, especially somebody who is not important to them or not in their life, an actor in a movie. And it's like, that guy in The Hunt for Red October, you can remember the name of the movie, but you can't remember the actor. And so that starts the process of being able to funnel through, um, other memories that may bring back the answer that you're looking for. So time is essential.
Would you say that time is something that is fixed and objective or something that is subjectively like shaped by our memories?
Oh God. At least my opinion is that it's absolutely shaped. We bend and twist and alter time. And I don't think that's entirely, non-scientific, at least if you think about things like string theory and that kind of stuff. It's I mean, time is not linear. There are some people theorize that there are many timelines all at once, and that they bend and shift. And I think that happens. I think that proof happens in our brain. You know. So yeah, I do think
Heard
that my opinion is that nothing is linear in that regard.
it's interesting. I when I was in school, I had a professor mention as a thought experiment when he was trying to talk about the difference between like mortal time and immortal time is the
Mm,
idea that like a deity could potentially play all of time like a movie where you can just fast forward and rewind and go back and forth wherever you want. And um, yeah. Anyway, so with your idea, with your comment that like there might be multiple timelines happening all at once is just kind of you're gonna send me down rabbit holes, and I can't do that. We need to.
well, I can
Um,
I can probably solve that problem for you quite easily, Matt. I mean, you'd have to believe in deities, in
yep.
order for that to hold any value. And I think that also presents a very interesting aspect to, you know, what we believe and how we believe it, which is, potentially the theological, um, things that we find important in our life. And so, if you do, right? So again, I mean, clearly your professor has presented an interesting question in that could there be two separate timelines for two separate entities? Yeah,
Okay.
fun
Last
stuff to contemplate.
for real, for real. Um, okay. Last one. I'm going to use a very specific word that will
Mhm,
hit you um, at some point in here. So you choose how you want to respond to this. But I'm going to remember that at one point, the hound mentions to our main character that he's not going to try to convince him of anything because it's more important that people arrive at conclusions on their own.
mm,
Okay. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of philosophers at you as counterpoints, right? Nietzsche
mhm,
purports that we lack original beliefs and instead we ingest beliefs from others at a very young age. And okay, now you have John Locke, who suggests that we are blank slates and our environment and experience imprint beliefs on us. And then Jean Paul Sartre has the idea that existence precedes essence, meaning that we're born as nothing and then we're built up by the world around us. But the hound is very much a counterpoint to those views, kind of implying that we are able to form our own beliefs without influence. I'm curious what you think or what the book is saying. Are we original thinkers or are we really nothing more than an amalgamation of what's around us? Maybe another way to phrase that um, is the book trying to say that memories are created or are memories programmed?
mm. Yes. I mean, that is a question that I am. I'm not enough of an intellectual to jump down that rabbit hole. I think that my answer is yes. I think that they
Yes.
they all present good arguments, and I'm open to them all for contemplation. But I don't I don't think I prescribe to an answer there. So yes.
Okay. So quick follow up. What happens
I'm not
if
getting off the hook that easy. Okay, go ahead.
memories are shaped by experience? We'll go down one fork of this, right?
Okay.
If memories are shaped by experience, what happens if those memories disappear? Like, I guess we could potentially get into the nature versus nurture type of thing. Are we left with only our nature? Does nurture still somehow linger even with memories disappearing or being filled with holes?
Yeah, yeah. This is so, Matt. This is probably the best question I've been asked in a long, long time. Certainly in regards to the book. And all I can say here is that I've had a number of profound experiences with some family members that have had dementia. Um, and one of the things that I've realized is that the first thing that seems to be affected is short-term memory. Then, slowly, long-term memory erodes away. And what's interesting about the difference between short-term memory, at least in my limited experience, is that short-term memory really only influences us in the now, right in the moment. Whereas long-term memories become a part of our reflex. And these long-term memories, as I've seen it, as they erode away and even completely disappear, there is this cognitive muscle reflex that allows the person to continue to function with this almost, yeah, it's a reflex. They continue to react in the way as if the memory was still there, but it's not there for them. They don't know who you are, but they know, at least for the in the earlier stages, that they should know. And so they can't piece together how they know you. And I think that there's some similarities in life to that, where we see somebody on the street and they come over to us and they say, "Hey, Matt, how are you?" And you have no idea who this person is, but there is this glimmer of recognition in that I should know who they are, in that I recognize their facial features or the way they dress or the cadence in their voice. And you suddenly begin to feel like you could know them. And obviously they know you. Or it could just be somebody, a face in the crowd where you're like, I think I know that guy. How do I know him? So yeah, there is this, I believe that there is this, I mean, like I said, the brain is a
Freaky.
wild thing,
Yeah.
where we tap into these aspects of it, but we also see others who are struggling with theirs, and it's unbelievable to see that, like, they can still function without these abilities, and yet the brain has provided them with or maybe it's not even the brain, maybe it's a total physical thing where they're just so used to doing it, to reacting that way, that it's almost a zombification to some degree.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
I don't know, and God forbid I ever get there. Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather be able to be razor sharp right until the end. But yeah, I don't know what kind
Good
of hand
luck.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh, I don't know if this was the kind of conversation you thought we were going to have. if
Well, I'm either way. I'm very pleased that we did.
if I might speak to the audience listening for a couple of moments, this conversation was so cool. And if you have not read Marmalade Parade, do me a huge favor and go read it. Come back and re listen to this conversation with the context of the book and let us know what you think. Like, fascinating.
I
It's
would love
very
that.
fascinating. Yeah.
I would
Uh,
love it if they went and read it too. So please do me a huge favor and go.
yeah, it's his book, not mine. Um,
Yeah, I could use all the fans I can get. So
um, but we have been on for about 70 minutes, and I want to be cognizant of your time this afternoon. So let's end with like two kind of look forward questions.
Okay,
What
let's
is
do it.
next? What's next for Matt Joudrey? Is there another book in the works? Are you just on promotion tour for this one? What's next?
Well, I guess I have to put my money where my mouth is because I tell all of my authors, if I put my publishing hat back on here, I tell them, great, you finished the book, now get to work. Meaning, start writing again. Like, I'm glad that that's finished. Congratulations. If you're a writer, keep writing. So I am in the process of grinding through some early plot details on something, but it certainly hasn't shaped into anything that I'm at all sure is a book or anything for that matter. But there is um, there is a few shafts of light that are coming through the window that I might be able to use. So so
That was the most
that's an ambiguous answer to that
that was the most authorial response ever. There's some shafts of light peeking through. All right, Mister. All right.
so there
Um,
is.
if I might ask a question about it, do you plan on continuing with the voice and style of Marmalade Parade, or are you wanting or desiring to kind of maybe switch things up?
That's a good, yeah, that's a question that's uh, really tough to answer because I don't know what the book will expect of me if I get to that place with it. Uh, I do know though that I am always interested in trying new things and new challenges. I don't know if that means that the style will be similar, exactly the same, or wildly different. I can't say, but like I'm always looking for a way to create something, you know, like very exciting. And that's what I want. I want the reader to pick it up and be and look at it and say, you know what, while it may not be completely original, what is, I guess that's another philosophical question. But I want them to feel like maybe they haven't seen it in a really long time or have never experienced it themselves. So that's the hope.
That was a good full circle tie-in moment.
Okay, good.
Um, okay, and very last questions: how best can people, readers, fans, whomever, get in touch with you, follow along, and be on the lookout for updates?
Yeah, so, I'm one of these, eccentric rare birds that, has no web presence whatsoever.
Okay, all right. It's not just my horrible googling skills.
No, 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 it's not. I have, absolutely no interest whatsoever in social media. So I have no presence and I have no interest in using it or experiencing it. It's not to say that I haven't. I have. I see nothing there. The only thing that I see there is more and more use of AI to drown out the human condition. So I stay away from it. I do not have a website or web presence. I do have an email and nobody's getting it. Uh, the best
Noted.
way The best way to get a hold of me, really, when I say get a hold of me or follow anything that I'm doing, is announcements through the publisher. The publisher, Guernica Editions out of Toronto, is um, is really great about sharing anything that's going on through their social media channels. And so I would urge people to follow Guernica's social media channels because what you're going to get there is nothing but stuff about the authors and their books. And then um, show up, show up and come to the readings, the signings, the festivals, the book fairs, the conventions where I'll be present, and there'll be lots of those. So then
Is
we
there
can
a
meet in person and chat.
Is there like a tour schedule that people could reference? Is that on like Guernica's website or?
Yeah, so the first two the book launches in Toronto on April 26th, which is a Sunday, and it's late Sunday afternoon. I want to say it starts at 4 p.m. And then I have a launch in the city of Winnipeg at McNally Robinson Booksellers on May 9th at 7 p.m. And more dates will be scheduled after that. And it'll
Very
be on
cool.
Gurney site. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Um, well, for everybody, one more time for posterity, the novel is Marmalade Parade by the amazing author and guest Matthew Joudrey, Matt Joudrey, MC Joudrey. You can Google all of the things.
That's
Um,
right.
and I guess on that note, thank you so much for joining me and taking time to pontificate about life.
Matt, I have to tell you that well, first thing before I go is thank you, and then the second thing is I had such a great time. It's been a long time since I've been on a podcast or any interview for that matter that really took the time to enjoy and dive deep into the work and the little tidbits and facets that come with it. So thanks for being you. It was great. You've got yourself a brand new fan. I will definitely be tuning into every future episode. So thanks for that.
I appreciate that so much. If any listeners would like to keep in touch, follow along, I will do my best to leave all of the information in the description down below. Um, both my contact information, Guernica's. So thank you so much for listening. Send us a comment, blah, blah, blah. And until next time, cheers.
Bye, everybody.